welcome to The Animates, the show for animators by animators. With me today, I'm your host, Elise Goma, and with me today is Henry Troll and David
Hey
Pavil.
everyone.
And we're going to be talking about side projects and how to keep yourself motivated. I can hear myself twice, and I don't know why. Hoping it'll go away. But yeah, so first off, how are you guys doing? You having a good day?
Meh.
Wow.
Like, I'm glad it's the weekend
Wow.
for sure. Like it's been a rough few weeks, so any kind of break is a good break for me. But it's
I'm having a good day. It's a nice sunny day in Vancouver, and we usually don't get sun. We get a lot of rain, so whenever it's sunny, I'm doing well.
Okay.
Excellent.
I like it. I like the honesty. And I'm recovering from being sick, but been sick twice this month, so I'm hoping that's capped out February for me. So yeah, so it's good. But I'm really excited to talk about side projects today. But before I do, I always forget to mention plug. We have our website where you can see all our past videos, and you can also get links to our YouTube, Twitters, and stuff like that. And that is the-animates.com. All our stuff's up on there and has links to everything. And any new listeners, we've got our own Discord, which is great because there's a bunch of really cool people on there. We're trying to make it a really special community for animators, so check that out. It's really cool. Now, side projects. This is a big one because I feel like I remember back in the day when I was at uni and hearing about people in the industry, and I'd say, oh, what's the biggest thing you miss about university? And they would say, oh, well, I don't really get time to work on my own stuff anymore because I'm so busy with all my work stuff going on. And I'd always be like, well, I'm not going to be one of those people. I'm going to have so much time. I mean, you finish at 5 or 6 every day. You have like the whole evening to do stuff. I can't imagine that you'll ever not have time to work on your own stuff. So I'd love to know what you guys think about that. And also we're going to be talking about, trying to do your own stuff when you're a student as well, when you're like getting going and you have like assignments and stuff, but you also have your own stuff that you want to be doing. So what do you think about trying to get work done after work when you've been in a creative field? Let's say you're an animator and you've been animating all day and you get home, and how do you make that happen?
which one of us?
I mean, let's go with David because you're
Okay.
on the left, and we're gonna do this.
So my biggest trouble with side projects was building up the motivation as soon as I got home. Like you'd be at work and you're thinking to yourself, man, it'd be really cool if I could do this and this and this. And you get really excited about these side projects that you might want to do, and you're all amped up. The work day ends, you're going home, you're like, oh my God, it's gonna be so awesome. And you get home and you sit down in your chair and you die. Like it happens every single time. All your motivation, all your energy just suddenly just vanishes. And this was a huge problem for me. Like I wanted to do painting and animation on the side, but I never could because every time I went home, I'm dead.
Mm-hmm.
So what I discovered is a great way for you to start doing side projects is to use that motivation and all that energy you have at work and stay at work. And I don't mean keep working on your own project, but or keep working on the game you're working on or whatever. I mean, use the resources you have available to you at work and work on side stuff. And for me, I actually allocated a small amount of time. Like I would clock out and I would say, okay, for a half an hour after work, I'm going to sit down and paint, or I'm going to sit down and animate. And it was a kind of a great way of introducing myself to side projects without burning out, and also start to build up that discipline. So when I actually went home and started doing it on my own, the discipline was already there. I just needed to change the environment.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. I mean, I remember like it's always easier to like add on to like an existing habit. And if you're already at work and you're already in work mode, I think it's like when you used to like going in the gym in the morning instead of going home and doing it. Because as soon as you get home, you take your shoes off and you sit down, there's like no hope that you're actually going to get up again and go. You're like, oh, well, I'm sat down now, so...
And it's amazing how fast it happens.
Yeah, it's
like you go from like peak energy at work, and like the 10 minutes or 15 minutes it takes you to get home, you're done. Like it's just, it's instantaneous.
definitely.
Mhm.
I think that commute as well. It's like no matter how long or short it is, your body goes, it's time to switch off. Your mind's like,
Yeah.
I'm done for the day. I've checked out. What do you think, Henry? Do you get the same thing or?
Yeah, totally. I find like staying motivated or getting motivated to do work after work is pretty tough. Um, one thing like I like to do and I need to do in order to get things uh, past the finish line is to really schedule out everything and kind of plan like I need like whatever X amount of hours to get things set up, like get my rig set up to, and then X amount of hours to do my blocking and my tweening and all that, and then I set up a schedule, and then and set it in my calendar. So then, like when I get home from work, and if it's a Monday and like it's it'll be like set some key poses for an hour or so. Like then I'll just do that and make sure I follow the schedule. Like that, I find that way it kind of keeps me organized and it's like I don't have to kind of think about it too much. It's just kind of just follow the schedule and just do the work.
Yeah, because you already made the decision and the plan before you start doing the stuff. So now you don't have to go, oh, do I want to decide? Now I'm tired. If I want to do the thing, you already like prepared for it all day. You're like, I know that's something I'm going to do at the end of the day. I know I have to like leave some brain energy, some motivation to get it done, and because you don't have to go over the step of like forcing yourself to do it, then I guess it's easier to sink
Absolutely, and I think for me it helps to see the whole plan, see where I'm going. So like how each step plays along along the way. So yeah, exactly. So I can just go home and like I need just to set these poses, and I know my next step I'm gonna do this and I'll do that. So there's no extra energy spent on figuring things out.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good plan. And David, do you find that you get ideas pretty easily for stuff you want to work on, or do you have to find a lot of inspiration to get going?
Oh, are you kidding? I have a backlog.
Yeah.
There's always 4 or 5 things queued up that I want to get done or want to try or thought might be cool, just to kind of flesh out a little bit. And even if doing something simple like storyboards or like just line work or something like that, just to kind of get the creative juices flowing and explore different ideas. But yeah, there's never an issue where I'm just like, man, what the hell should I create?
Yeah. Oh, I have no motivation. I'm never inspired. I think that is something like, I mean, it'll be surprising when motivation hits you, but there's always something going on where you'll watch a movie, or even at like at work sometimes, I'll be like looking at reference for something, and then unrelated, like some idea will pop into my head. That happened recently where I was like, oh, I'm gonna like look at this creature for reference, and then I was like, I just had a short story idea, and then I just like gonna write down, and I'm like, one of those days that's gonna like come back, and if not, that's fine. But where are some places that you might go if you were sitting at home and you're like kind of mentally dead, and you just kind of want to work on something fun, but you don't really know what, you just kind of want to do something? Do you have any methods you use to try and get yourself in the right frame of mind, or do you just kind of take that as a sign that you need to take a break? What do you think, Henry?
So sorry, can you repeat the last part again?
So imagine you're really exhausted, and you just kind of want something fun to work on. Like, let's say the work you've been doing at work has been, or at school has been really like draining.
Okay.
And you get home and you're like, I want to animate or draw or paint or do something, but I don't know what. I don't have any inspiration. Do you just take that as a sign that you need to have a break, or do you take that as a sign that you need to go to these certain places to go get inspiration?
Right. Yeah. I like if I'm not inspired or motivated, and I start animating, that's probably not I'll probably end up with something pretty crappy, or I won't enjoy myself. So like, yeah, I'll definitely go to like my spots for inspiration and motivation. Like usually, right now the easiest thing for me is just to go on Twitter and follow. Like I'm following a bunch of fantastic animators, seeing all the amazing stuff that they do. Even like just like work in progress shots, or like. Doesn't have to be finished animations. Could be just certain poses or whatever, and I'm like, oh crap, like this looks really awesome, and that kind of motivates me to kind of start doing something instead of just sitting at home and watching TV. But although that's good too, but like I'm just like, yeah, like these poses are so great, this animation is so awesome, I want to do something similar, and that's kind of how I get started.
Yeah, I always
It's
find
that
that
kind
you,
of
if yeah, no, if I always find if you watch like someone's animation reel, it's like that's so cool. I want to do that thing, or otherwise like Twitch is really good for like I mean it's not great, but like there's always like that theme that everyone's in right now. So like there was like a Spider-Man thing going on for a while where everyone wanted to do a Spider-Man sequence, and then like before that it was a Blizzard like posed like end of
Play of the game.
play of
Yeah.
the game, yeah, play of the game
Yeah.
things. Like everyone did like a play of the game, which is like maybe not the best thing for like your showreel, but it's like that thing that everyone's hyped about. That's like
But
fun
it is.
and new, and it's a lot of fun, yeah. And it's not that it's not showreel worthy, but it is like that thing that everyone's doing right now, which you can always get caught up in, I think. So yeah. Well, what do you think, David? Do you think so you got your things sorted out, and you always get motivated easily. But you're saying about how you found out that it worked better for you if you could stay at work to get stuff done, right? What if you couldn't stay late at work, or your home was work? What if you're a freelancer, or you're a student, or something where you get your work done is also where you get your fun work done? Do you know what I mean? Or where you play. Like I remember someone was talking to me where they freelanced at the desk, they did personal work at the desk, and then they play games at the desk. And it all just kind of merged into one, and it got really hard to kind of separate the modes of like how to transition to each mindset. And it ended up being like games weren't as fun, and then work wasn't as serious, but then everything kind of blurred. Do you know what I mean?
I do. And honestly, like for me, the home is the distraction for me.
Mm-hmm.
So by me staying at work, that was the way for me to kind of avoid falling into the same pitfall that I do every single time.
Yeah.
But if you work at home and you play at home and you do all your or fun stuff at home, then I think the biggest thing is make sure there's not a break in between.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where it happens.
Right.
Like as soon as you stop and you just kind of relax, or you just like loosen up a little bit, all your energy disappears. So it's carrying that momentum of work from one thing to another that I think is crucial. So if you take a 15-minute breather, like after you finish work and you go right into the thing, like that's most likely where you're gonna lose all your motivation.
Yeah. I guess it's like
So if you can just jump right from work into your thing. You can have it queued up or something like that, but just don't stop. that's the main thing.
Yeah, I gotta try that. I gotta say, I have a couple friends who come into work super early, and they'll work like a normal day, but they'll use that extra like hour or so they gained coming in extra early as a work thing. So now it just becomes an extra bit of their work day, and they use that for like study or something, which seems to be really helpful. And I remember I used to do, and then I stopped. But actually, that's a really good idea, and I think I'll definitely give that a go, because I feel like, I don't know about you guys, but with work, and I used to do this I think with schoolwork as well, when it gets really stressful at work, or you get to like crunch time, or there's a big deadline coming up, or just even if you really feel like you're pushing it really hard at work or at school, the energy and the motivation and the need almost to do personal work kind of just goes right down for me. Like if stuff's stressful at work, I don't want to come home and do more stuff. I'm like, I just need to save any little bit of energy I could possibly get and any creative juice into work right now. Do you guys have the same thing? What do you think, Henry?
Yeah, I think yeah, for sure. Like if you're getting like burnt out or working a lot of hours at work, it's hard to come home and put even more energy towards animating more, right? Like so, one thing that I find that's helpful is like I kind of split up the parts of work into kind of time where I need to put a lot of mental energy into it, or versus time where it's just kind of like that's something that's a bit more relaxing for me. Like so, for instance, say capturing reference or something like that's something that I find is kind of fun. And then I can always do that like if I'm not too tired after work, or like if I'm burnt out like from just thinking too much at work, I can come home and then act out reference and do some shots and capture that and edit that together. And so that's still super helpful, but it's just kind of different type of energy being used. So yeah, I'll split up my work kind of uh, according to what is needed.
So I'm really curious to ask, would you then recommend having a couple of side projects on the go at any one time? Because then you could kind of jump around and do whatever you're motivated to do at that minute. So you could have like a painting thing that when you're in the mood for painting, you go do that, and then you could have an animation thing that when you're in the and you could have a couple different areas of mental energy spread out. So, but then would that mean that you're kind of just breaking things up too much and you never get anything finished, or do you think it's more good than it is bad because you can kind of jump around?
Yeah, I think it could be good. For me, I wouldn't do that because that's too much for me to focus on. I probably wouldn't be able to finish everything. But I find even in an animation shot, there's so many different parts and different different things that take more mental energy here, or stuff where it's more you can kind of just put the headphones on and just kind of relax a bit, like doing things like waiting or even like sometimes I'll just do play blasts, and instead of saying keys, I'll just sit back and I'll critique my own work, right? And just like that's a different kind of takes a different type of thought as well, I guess. Like, so it's not as like, to me, I find it's not as doesn't take as much energy. To me, when I'm setting keys, that's more stressful, I guess. But if I'm just sitting back doing my play blast, taking notes, and that can be just an hour of that, right? Like, and that's super helpful as well. If I take a whole bunch of notes and then apply it for my next session of animating, just fix all these things. That's that helps break it up as well. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, no, I really love the idea that it's like, oh, my arms are really tired, so I'm going to work out my legs. Like, you have like different sources of mental energy, and if you could kind of like balance it, then you could get more done, right? Which I really like. It's like, I'll do that at work where I know that it takes a lot more mental energy for me to think of new ideas, think of how they're going to attack, or how they're going to do this, or what the mental image I'm ending up as. So sometimes if I'm in a really good day, I'll just like look at all my tasks and I'm like, okay, I need to do all this stuff. I'm just going to go and block out all of this stuff because it's easier for me if there's already like all the bones there to actually animate between it than it is to think of brand new ideas. That's a lot more mentally taxing. So I'll save that for when I'm feeling really good, maybe in the morning, and then in the evening I'll try and do more like, I'll get this spine working well and adjust the curves and stuff that's a little less, I guess it uses less imagination to do. It's more using the principles and stuff that I can kind of fall back on. Do you think you do the same thing, David?
I do. It's the same and different. It's exactly like you said. It's nice to have kind of multiple aspects of a project, where if you ever get tired with one, it's exactly like you said. If your arms are tired, work out your leg.
Yeah.
So even something as minor as switching from animation to rigging, or from like storyboarding to just tweening or cleanup, completely different mental process. Yeah, you can definitely, whatever keeps it novel. Me personally, I like having a bunch of different projects in play, but in different disciplines.
Okay.
So I have an animation project and a painting project and a program all going on at the same time.
Yeah.
And usually what I'll do is I'll schedule each one on different days. Programming is usually like a late night thing, but for animating and painting, they have their own separate days. So like Monday, Tuesday, I'll do painting, and then Wednesday, Thursday, I'll do animation, or maybe they'll just do animation on one day a week or something like that. But I like the idea of keeping things novel. Because a big motivator for me is just the fact that it's something new. It's something exciting that I can sink my teeth into. And that novelty kind of wears off quickly. So by switching between projects all the time, I can jump back in and be like, oh my God, yeah, this thing, I remember this now.
Yeah.
And it's all fresh in my mind again.
So like when one starts to wane, you can kind of look at the other and go, oh yeah, that was that cool thing I was doing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really cool. I would love to just do like a scheduling workshop. Because I feel like I learned so much about time management at like doing my A-levels in uni, but then like it's a whole new world where like I feel like it's such a big learning curve to realize that you are getting paid for the 9 to 5 thing, right? And you can't stay up till 4 in the morning because there's that thing you want to work on, because then you can't perform well when you're at work, right? And I feel like there's that learning curve of, well, there's this thing that I have to have as this level of energy for, and I have to balance that, you know, with my time. So I think the idea of scheduling in your free hours of what your side projects are doing is actually really cool. I also love the idea that you could be like, Mondays is my painting day and Tuesday is my, because then I feel like you can get your brain ready for having that at the end of the day, so that you could probably even, you know, balance that out with, if you had a bunch of different tasks you need to do at work, maybe if you're had painting at the end of that day, you're like, okay, that's very artistic, maybe I'll do something more technical during the work day. Or maybe if the next day is rigging or programming, then you do something more artistic that day. And that's not always going to be an option, because, you know, work is work, and if you get a new task and it's whatever it is and you have to do it, then that's fine, that's what you're being paid for. But if you can manage your time well, you can maximize your efficiency, I guess.
For me, it's more like an accountability thing.
Okay. How do you keep accountable?
How do I keep accountable?
Yeah.
I stream. That's seriously the only reason I stream, is to make myself accountable to these side projects.
Yeah.
So that I, you know, when I know there's other people tuning in, there's other people watching me.
Yeah.
I am way more likely to stay focused and scheduled.
How do you
for a long period, I had it down pat. Like, I would come home, I would socialize with my roommates for about a half an hour.
Mm-hmm.
I'd go upstairs, I'd stream until late, and then I'd eat dinner afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And that worked out really well. But then with crunch time, everything just kind of falls apart, because that's the problem with scheduling, is the best laid schedules can easily go awry. Mm-hmm. Like, it's so easy to just screw it all up.
Everyone has a plan until they get hit in the face by crunch.
Yeah. But that's what the streaming was for. It was just to keep me accountable and keep me on a schedule.
Yeah. So what do you use to do your scheduling?
Mental. I don't write it down at all. It's the only schedule I need to adhere to is my work schedule and my stream schedule. Mm-hmm. Which my stream schedule has been the same for the last 3 years or however long I've been streaming.
Yeah.
And everything after that is just kind of wing it. Mm-hmm. Like, because my scheduling is based on, I guess it's not even a schedule. My work ethic is based on my motivation level.
Okay.
So if I'm motivated throughout the day, and if I'm motivated while streaming, I'll work way beyond what I scheduled out, simply because I'm riding the flow. You know, it's just, you keep going. Mm-hmm. And then inversely, if I ever get too tired or I'm just not feeling it that day, I don't try to force it. I just call it quits.
Yeah, which I think is really important, because I think I used to not have a lot left to give, but I would force myself to try to do it anyway, and I'd end up taking a lot of steps back and wearing myself out. And it's like, objectively, I'd look back on it later and go, how much did I really help myself there? Like, sure, I kept to my thing that I said I promised I would do, but maybe that's not actually as realistic as I thought. Maybe that's actually not as helpful as I thought it would be. What do you think, Henry? What about how do you schedule your stuff? Do you write it all down?
Yeah, I like to use my calendar, have things like in my Google Calendar, having everything written down, but nothing like too everything at a high level. So just kind of blocking hour periods of time sessions, so I can set some keys on one day or do this on another day. Just kind of just so I have that on my phone. I get my notifications, okay, do this now, just for an hour, and just ditch it when that's done, just so I'm not burning myself out. But yeah, I really need to have things written down or on my phone, or else I'll forget or get busy with something else.
Yeah, so it's funny because I know people that work like that, where they're like, if it's written down and I've told myself I'll do it. And there's other people that's like, past me doesn't know what they're talking about, ignore, you know. So do you guys have any suggestions for people like that who will ignore their own plans, I guess? Like, people who need to be more spontaneous about stuff? Does that make sense? Is that just a learning curve? Or is that just people that work differently?
That's just a discipline issue, I think.
Okay.
I mean, guys, yeah, so long as you once you create a schedule, you have to stick with it. Otherwise, if nothing's going to work. And for me, yeah, developing that discipline is always the hardest part, which is why I had to do my first like side projects at work.
Yeah.
Just because I knew I wasn't going to have the discipline or the motivation to work on stuff when I got home, so I had to stay at work. It was almost like putting myself in a prison cell.
Yeah.
You know, if I remove myself from all of the distractions in the world, I am way more likely to focus on a project.
Mm-hmm.
And then only after I build up that discipline can I then go home and continue working.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Something funny that we started doing recently. We at work, there was like a small group of us that started a fitness challenge where we just got this big Excel spreadsheet and we put everyone's names at the top, and then you just got a point every day that you went and worked out for more than half an hour. And then we decided like the goal was like at the end of the month, whoever lost had to buy everyone a coffee, right? Which is like nothing. It's like, you know, $15 or whatever to get everyone a coffee. So like the prize is like nothing, but you know, it was enough accountability that everyone got really competitive about it, and everyone had their own like little mini goals that they wanted to get, so it could be like whatever they wanted, but it was more just the consistency of going and to like keep each other accountable. If you're like not going all week, people will be like, well, hey, you're gonna get us that coffee at the end of the month or whatever, which is pretty fun. And then so from that, one of the guys was like, oh hey, why didn't we do like this but for personal work? And I was like, that would be great. I've been like pushing it really hard at work right now, and I've just been kind of ignoring doing my like creative outlet stuff when I get home. So literally next week we're starting to do this channel where we'll just post up accountability for doing personal stuff, which is cool because it's not like hey, you have to get X amount done, but it's like if you post something up 1 week and then the next week exactly the same, it's like, yeah, I feel like I should be getting stuff done. So I think that's like an important thing about motivation. It's like, how can you make it something that's internal versus something that's external, you know? And I feel like having that accountability, like what you said with the streaming, like I used to do the same thing where even if I had like one person watch, it's like, well, I can't go and like look at Twitter for an hour because one person will be like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, I came here to watch you animate and you're just, you know, dossing about on Twitter. And so that was really cool because, you know, it just meant that it made you focus, you know, and I think anything that makes you feel like you should do that is cool. But then, I don't know, I guess if you can combine it so you can have something that where you're passionate about it enough that you can internally motivate, but you also get the external motivation of having someone check, like, hey, you actually like keeping up with that? What do you guys think? Henry?
Yeah, totally. I think that having that external motivation, at least for me, that would keep me in check quite a bit. And then, especially if there's a competitive thing, like if I have to buy my mate's coffee,
It's working.
Versus getting free coffee. Like I'm a competitive guy, so I'd be just like if I have to buy coffee, I would never hear the end of it.
We want to get like a really shitty little trophy where it's like some like the worst trophy we can find, like stick things to it, and then the winner gets that, and it just looks
that sounds that'd be great. I think one thing that helps me schedule thing motivated as well is just having that end goal in sight and planned for. Like, so if I have an animation or a project a little side project that I want to do, like I'll set, like I want to finish this within a month or 2 months or a couple of weeks or whatever. And so then when I do miss a date for whatever reason, and I know like I'm that much further behind, so that makes a difference. Just knowing how far along I am with my to get to my finish line versus how well I'm doing in my schedule. So like every time I miss a date, I feel worse about it, so that kind of helps me motivate myself as well.
Make yourself feel bad.
Not make yourself feel bad, but like know where you are towards your goals, I guess.
I'll put the spurs to you, you know?
I like that. Yeah. Because we all have like really big goals, and then if you break them down into little like mini projects, I think that's a nice way of looking at it. I heard someone say like, what was it? don't do like tests, do like a project, do like a proper thing that you can start and it has a middle and you can call finish, where you know where the finish line is, and it's not just like draw more, you know, or animate some point, you know. It's like, no, have like, I want to do an attack that is roughly this long, that is very polished, and it is in this style. And the more kind of specific you can be about where you want to end up, that means that when you actually get there, you can say, yeah, I'm good with that, I'm done. Because I feel like a lot of, like, some people's problems are getting going and some people's problems are getting it done. And I feel like getting it done is something that's really difficult, because a lot of the time we have to deal with setbacks that are out of our control. What if your company goes into crunch? What if, you know, something happens personally? You're just like, I can't do stuff right now. You know, how do you deal with setbacks? And do you just drop like personal side projects as a priority, or do you still kind of keep them ebbing away and just realize that you have to put your deadlines back? What do you think, David?
Well, no, if for those kind of situations where everything is out of your control, like if you're in crunch time suddenly, or if you have to take a sudden trip or it's things like that, yeah, you can't work on personal projects.
Yeah.
Now, for me personally, like when I went into crunch time, I would just reduce my personal work time by half.
Mm-hmm.
So where I would normally stream for 2 hours a day, I would stream only 1 hour a day.
Mm-hmm.
But even that is hard to hold on to, because once you start crunching, like everything goes out the window. You don't eat the way you used to. You don't sleep the way you used to. You don't work on side projects the way you used to. Everything about your life is over. So it's so it's kind of a hard thing to motivate for personal projects.
Life is over. Yeah.
Yeah. And the big thing is, personal projects are exactly what they are. They're side projects. They're extra work that you do when you get home. So you can't feel bad when real life gets in the way of that stuff. And it's always there on the side. You can always pick it back up. So I don't feel terrible about it. But I also can't force myself to work on these things, because if I do, I'm going to end up burning myself out.
Yeah.
So when real life happens, let it happen. Leave the extra work on the side and then wait for things to calm down again. Because otherwise you're just going to hurt yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of more ways to keep people accountable. I mean, there's definitely like, I was trying to start this with the Discord, where you could get like a mentoring thing, but not so much as like someone that's going to hold your hand, but just some way of being like, I have promised myself that on Friday I am going to give this group an update with this project.
I have a few examples of this.
Okay,
so back in university, back when I was about maybe 10 months into my program, I found myself an animation partner.
Okay.
And an animation partner was somebody who was joined at the hip with me for the entire rest of my college career.
Wow.
And so whenever I was in lab, she was in lab. Mm-hmm. Whenever I stayed up late, she stayed late. And we were always on top of each other. If we ever slacked even in the slightest, we kicked each other's ass all the time throughout the entire university. And it paid off. Yeah. Like we were the top 2 reels in our class for that year. Mm-hmm. And it was, and that kind of thing it stays persistent throughout the rest of like all your side projects. Another example, like streaming is my way of being accountable, but my best friend was a person who was really bad at getting motivated to get started working and things like that. And so he was like, hey, you know, can we work together and come up with a schedule so I can stay accountable as well? And I was like, yeah, you know what? I stream at this time every day. Why don't you hop on the stream with me? Yeah. And we'll just keep talking to each other. And we have a set time limit, and we'll just keep working until that time limit's up, and then we'll be done. And that worked out great for him. He was able to stay consistently working throughout, I think we said like a month for ourselves. Yeah. If he can stay consistent for a month, then that would be considered a success. Yeah. And then, like I said again, streaming, always a great way of being accountable. It's always knowing that there's a good group of people that are here to see you. You don't want to betray them. And, you know, any successful streamer will tell you have to stick to a schedule in order to be, you know, get consistent viewership. So those are all different ways of motivating yourself to staying on task.
Yeah. I really like the idea of finding a buddy, especially if they're like at your level, so you can kind of help each other out, you know, because then it's like a mutual beneficial thing, where it's like, well, when you're sucking, I'll poke you, and when you're sucking, you poke me. And you want to find something where you both kind of have similar goals and you have a similar work ethic, I feel like, because you don't want to be that person that's been doing something for 6 years and then this person's like only been doing it one day and they're like, hey, I want you to come in and motivate me. It's like, well, that doesn't really work. It's like you've got to be, somewhat on the same level, otherwise it's just like one person trying to drag the other person up, and it's like, well, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's gotta work both ways, otherwise it's
at that point
get tiring.
You're not both growing, you're
Right.
being dragged down by somebody else.
Right, exactly.
That doesn't work.
Which is, what's the point of that?
Mm.
Yeah, so that's a good way of becoming accountable. What about posting regularly online work in progress things, like with a blog or with Twitter or Facebook or ArtStation, which we'll get to, which is a little different.
Or our Discord channels.
Or our Discord channels. I need like a... There we go. Yeah, so what about like using social media or a blog or even just like a friend chat thing, like a Messenger or WhatsApp group or something like that, to use that as an accountability? Do you guys think that posting up work in progress stuff is a good idea online, and how often do you think would be wise to do it? Henry? Or something.
I think it is for sure. Like getting feedback and critiques from people, especially online, you can get you can hear back from like a lot of amazing animators. Like that's that's invaluable, right? So, but I personally don't do it as much because I'll just kind of bug some animator friends, because usually when I'm looking for feedback, I want it pretty quick.
Yeah.
And luckily I know some people that have been really good at giving feedback and all that. So I'll just kind of hit them up and get feedback and just kind of work off of that. But yeah, I definitely think posting things up anywhere where you can get just to have another set of eyes on your work is super important, right? So yeah, it's something I want to do more. Post on Twitter, on Discord, on wherever. But yeah.
It'd be kind of cool if you could do something where it was like a hashtag that was. I mean, I guess there's screenshot Saturdays, which is like post up what you're working on every Saturday. But if it was more like a running thread where it's like every week you had to check in and be like, this is what I got, and you couldn't miss it. Like if you posted the exact same thing 3 weeks in a row, that's what you got. And I don't know, it's a bit hardcore, I guess, but it would be a cool idea, huh? Like just to be like, you got to keep the thread going with your specific work, and then you had to check in. Anyway.
Well, they have smaller ones. They have like events, so like 1 month it'll be like, or Inktober is a good example.
Right, Inktober, yeah. So that's also a good way of just like getting going with something, is to just join something that's already existing, like a contest or something.
Yeah, and there's always a new flavor every month. And that, like, on the topic of deadlines are a fantastic way to motivate yourself to keep working. Like if you know you have to turn something in next week, it's fantastic. But unfortunately, you can't really. I have a hard time setting deadlines for myself because I have the power to change that deadline.
Yeah.
I can always make an excuse to be like, oh well, I had to go home for this thing. I can push back my deadline another 2 days or another week or something like that. But for other deadlines that you don't have control over, for instance, like collabs are a great example of a deadline that you can't change, but is also a fun activity that you can do like a small little project for. So for that kind of stuff, anytime you can find a deadline for yourself that you can't change, I think is a huge motivator and a way to keep yourself accountable as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like one thing that was really awesome was the ArtStation the Riot contests, like that. And like it was a few years ago when I joined. I think Alec was participated as well, but like that one I wanted to kind of participate because it had a deadline. You had to submit by, I forget when it was, but like you had a month or so to do your work, and that really kept me accountable. And I submitted like super, like I think it was like 12 o'clock on the the deadline day, like right at the end, but like it still kind of kept me accountable. So like those deadlines, yeah, was really, really important. At least for me, for someone who, yeah, is usually late on things.
Yeah. I like the idea of, like Kenny put up about having the SMART goal as specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely, right? We also tried doing a fitness project last year, a fitness like competition thingy. That's where we got this one from, and I think it was like 3 months long, and it just was too much time because everyone kind of went hardcore in the beginning, and then it kind of fizzled a bit, and then it kind of got hardcore again at the end. But it did kind of drag on, and I feel like having something that's a good time limit is good. Like I feel like having like a monthly bigger goal, but like weekly shorter goals is good. Like I feel like about a month, about 4 weeks to maybe 6 weeks at a push, but probably 4 is about as far in the distance as I can put goals without just getting like halfway through and be like, oh well, I'm kind of like not quite doing that now, or oh like 4 weeks is, I feel like, long enough where you can predict where you'll be and still be aware if anything major comes up. Do you guys agree about that time kind of frame? What do you think? Do you guys set like that kind of thing for yourself, or do you just like a time block and then just see where you're at? What do you think, David?
I think it's tougher for me. Having sub goals can be tough because I have a hard time figuring out where the break line should be.
Okay.
Like if you can tell yourself, hey, yeah, I want to get all my E's in place, and then next week I want to get all my blockouts or my breakdowns in place, and then maybe a polish pass here. It's kind of nebulous, and especially on something like painting,
Yeah.
where you can't just be like, okay, well, I need to get this quadrant of the painting done or this quadrant of the painting done. It's way too subjective, I think.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
if
even
it's
if it was a
possible
month?
to break it up into smaller goals, yeah, absolutely do it. But I have a hard time doing it personally.
Yeah. What about you, Henry? Do you do that? Do you break stuff up, or?
Yeah, I definitely do. For animation, like at least for myself, like I need to see progress to stay motivated.
Yeah.
So even if I'm doing like an hour a day, I'll break things up into something where like where I can see progress. Like
Or
so
like
I'll work on
like
like
a
say
super planner. And like in this
Well,
minute I will do this, and then next minute, and I already spent a
no.
minute reading it, and now I'm behind.
No, but like I'll break it down. Like so, say if my animation is 100 frames, like I only have an hour to work on it. I'll be like, okay, for this hour, I'm only gonna work on frame 1 to 10,
Mm-hmm.
and then and work on that part, right? And
Yeah.
then push that forward within the hour. Because like I don't have enough time to do everything, I'm gonna make this part great, and then next day I can go from 10 to 20 and do that, and then it can see progress
Yeah.
and everything. Um,
Or if you're doing a polish pass, it
yeah.
could just be like, just do a pass on the eyelids or the fingers or whatever. You could just like break it down into like focusing on that one thing. I think one of the first shortcuts I made was to just like quickly grab one section of the timeline, and then I would just like focus on whatever the worst bit was, and just be like, I'm just gonna keep going until this one little bit out of this whole thing is like, and then look at it again and go, yep, that's like the next worst bit, and then just focus in on that one little bit again, and then eventually you're kind of like, okay, I can like look at this as a whole, everything looks okay, now I'm just going to focus on this one thing all the way through, and
Yeah.
I think that's
I have a similar process to what Henry said. Is I tend to have a progressive system. So I'll be like, okay, I did all my breakdowns. So today, frame 0 through 40, I'm just going to do the polish pass on. And then next day is going to be 40 to 80. And the next day is going to be 80 to 120. Like it's a very, very set, rigid system for me.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. I'm motivated. I want to go get started with all my projects. But so we started about getting going and motivation, which isn't that hard to come by, I don't think, because especially when you're surrounded by so many cool people all day, and then you come home and you look at like Twitter and stuff, there's always something really cool happening, and if not, then you're walking around and things happen, and I think art block's like more when you're just like exhausted, and I feel like art block you can get past just by like starting to work on something, because I feel like it's that scary thing of having that blank piece of paper to work on. So like I remember I just had to come up with a ton of ideas at work for this new character thing, and I was kind of like exhausted, and I was like, I'm just gonna start putting like them in like their characterful poses, and then eventually I'd like put them in a pose and put them in a different pose, and I'd be like, oh, I can see how maybe they're doing this thing and maybe they're doing that. So I feel like just even acting on it can help you break past that. And I love what you guys said about the scheduling stuff. But how do you know when to let your baby go? How do you know when you can call it done? How do you know when you can finally let go of something and actually call it done? Because I feel like a lot of people in the industry are kind of perfectionists in a way, where they kind of like stress about it not being the best thing ever. So how do you get to that point where you can move on to the next project without just ending up with a sea of unfinished projects? What do you think, David?
It's done when they take it from my cold, dead hands.
Don't think that was the message we were going for, but cool.
No, because it's exactly like you said. You never know when it's done,
true.
and you're going to keep finding things, and you're going to keep trying to perfect it over and over and over again. So until somebody comes up and says, hey, stop, I have a hard time letting go. So, like, for instance, like the last painting I did, I had been kind of noodling around with it for months.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until my studio came up with its own art gallery, where it's like, hey, if you have any paintings, we can print them out, we'll hang them up on the wall, and it'll be motivation for everyone in the studio. So just seeing stuff from outside of work. And I was like, crap, I need to get my painting done for this. So I actually worked harder, and I made sure to call it done when it was time to go.
Right.
But other than that, it's really hard to just be like, okay, I'm done with this. You really have to set either a deadline for yourself, or somebody has to set a deadline for you, or else you're going to keep noodling.
Yeah, that's true. What do you think, Henry? You do the same thing, or can you call
Yeah,
stuff done?
No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, having those deadlines. Yeah, like what David said, having deadlines by someone set for you, or you set it yourself, like that is really important. Also, like getting feedback. Like I always get feedback from some people like that I really trust and is really honest with me, right? Like, and if there's still stuff that are like, hey, that looks weird, or fix this or that, like it's not done for me. Like I'll keep fixing it until a point where they're like, it's yeah, like they don't have much to say, and then like, okay, it looks good to me, it looks good to someone else, then I'm done with it. And yeah. So yeah, getting some third-party feedback usually is helpful for me.
Yeah, definitely. I do like it when people start to run out of things to say about it. It's like, okay, I'm on the right track now. Like if you can't pick it apart anymore, it's getting there. But I remember
that gives me anxiety.
Yeah, I remember
I always, when somebody sees my piece and they're like, it looks good to me, I'm like, what do you mean? Are you not looking at it? There's got to be 100 other things in here. I mean, and it just, I'm keep thinking, it's like, well, I got to find somebody else in. Somebody else has to find something wrong with it. It's not done until somebody takes it from me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I remember when I was like first getting going with stuff, I would look at like, the top films ever made, the top games ever made, and I would use that as my benchmark. And I'd be like, if I can't get to this benchmark where someone's worked on it for like 9 months and it's got like a whole team of like 100 people behind it, blah blah blah, then it's not done. And that obviously meant that I barely got anything done. I'd have like a ton of projects, but I would like keep working, and then I'd just be like, you know what, I've learned so much at this point, I need to start over. And then I'd start over. Anyway, it got to like 2 years in, and someone was like, oh, like, yeah, I haven't really seen, like, have you been doing much? I was like, yeah, I've been doing tons, I've got all this work. And they're like, oh, how come I've not seen any of it? And I'm like, well, it's not like, this level quality. And they're like, well, yeah, you've been like learning for like 3 years, what do you expect? And I was like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. And then I started saying to myself, it's not perfect, but it's the best that I can do right now, so it's done. So it was kind of like, even though like someone else who's better than me is definitely gonna look at this and say it's like not anywhere near as good as whatever, this is my level right now, and there's nothing wrong with being at this level. I'm working, I'm trying to get better than this level, but that's where I'm at right now, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think it kind of changed my perspective of like, this was my bar where it used to be, and now my bar is just to be like, well, here was where I was last time, and this is now here. So that means I've done a pretty good job, instead of being like, well, why is it not like all the way up there? Oh, well, maybe because you can't jump 30 years of experience into, 2 months. But yeah, I think that helped me a lot. I don't know if you guys had a similar experience.
Oh yeah, I fall victim to that all the time. Like for as much as I work, I post maybe like 1 or 2 things a year tops.
But then I still
I just keep thinking to myself, like, hey, I made this thing.
Yeah.
It's not as good as all these other things, so I'm gonna go ahead and put this over here where nobody can see it.
Yeah. I'm so like mortified when I look at like my ArtStation and stuff, because I use my ArtStation as like my like portfolio thing, right? And the only like there's like 3 things on there of like finished work, and like I've done so much more stuff than that, like so much, and it's all like 99.9% done. Like it's like this far from being complete, and I just can't. I'm like, yeah, but what if they look at that and then it's just, I'm not happy with it, and but then it just looks like I've not been doing anything, and I wrestle with that a lot. I'm like, should I just shove it up there and be done with it? And it's like, oh well, I finished like a year ago, I should have submitted it a year ago, and now I've just been like noodling it, and I hate it now. I don't want to work on it anymore. But do you guys have that, like projects that you're like basically done with that you just can't put up anywhere, or?
Yep.
Totally.
Like I was thinking recently about posting failures.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, so not every single one of your projects is going to be a good thing. I mean, there's going to be some projects where you put a lot of effort to it, but it just doesn't come across as correct.
Yeah. Or
it's just missing some key aspect that you just lost in the very beginning stages, or you just haven't developed yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking about making a post on Twitter about just posting your failures and talking about what you've learned.
Yeah.
Because posting is a great idea, whether it's a work in progress, whether it's something you were just noodling around with. I think it's a great idea to keep posting. One, because it puts yourself out there and your post increase, or your post frequency increases and things like that. But also, those little likes and retweets, those little dopamine hits that we all just crave, those help. I mean, those give you the kind of feedback and motivation you need to keep like moving on to the next thing. But even failures are something you should. I think failures are something you should post and like understand and still put out there, because we're not all perfect, and I think everyone needs to know that.
Right.
But that's also important to know what you learned from said mistake.
Yep.
Sure, but then would you still put that up on your website or something that you would show to
No.
employers? Right. Exactly.
Twitter, Instagram, things like that, sure, fine. But no, I would not put it on my portfolio or on ArtStation or something like that.
Oh crap, I've got to go like edit my portfolio now. There's only that 0% of it that I'm happy with. No, I'm joking. But, yeah, no. I think it is nice to, I like anything that's like a quick media format thing, like a shorthand thing, like Facebook or Twitter, or unless it's like your Facebook art page where it's kind of like your portfolio thing. If it's just like a blog or something like that where it's quick, I don't see there's anything wrong with posting work in progress stuff up or failure stuff up, because the whole point of it is that it's like, here's this thing and it'll be gone in like 10 minutes, and then whereas
and nobody will ever find it again.
Yeah, and then when it's or if they do, it's like, well, it's on Twitter, like it's I'm working on it, and even if I'm not, if it's just look at this stupid thing I did, it's like you don't have to take it that seriously, I guess. Whereas when you put it on something like ArtStation, I feel like if it's like really low quality compared to what you can do, it starts to look negatively on your skills.
Yes.
And that's where you have to be a little careful with what you want to represent yourself as. Just like you wouldn't put like I don't try and get political on Twitter ever, or even just like I accidentally start following people on the Animates Twitter because I think it's my own, and then I realize it's not, so I have to go and follow them all because I'm like, I don't want to look like biased or whatever. But it's like, I would not like for someone to look at my Twitter and then be like, oh, I don't want to employ this person because she's constantly starting fights on Twitter, And I feel like there's that awareness of, sure, like there's certain things that are fine in certain places, but if you're gonna present this as your like work thing, which for me Twitter is. It's like a place for me to find other cool animators like yourselves and share work and just be in a cool community of like-minded people, then I don't want to be ruining that with like, this is me getting super drunk, or here's my innermost thoughts about Donald Trump, or like you don't need to do that. And like if you want to do that, that's fine. But me personally, I'm like, this is my like work thing, and if I wouldn't proclaim this to my boss at work, then I don't really want it on this thing. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yep.
So,
Yep, totally.
But one thing that worked for me that I was doing for a while is whenever I would work on something or stream or anything like that, I would find one screenshot to post. So whether it was like a funny pose or a weird mishap that happened during the day, or just anything that I found just slightly interesting that I could put up, I'd post that.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. It's just to give you that kind of like feedback, that kind of just immediate dopamine hit that you can desperately crave. That kind of keeps you motivated, and also keeps your post frequency up.
But I guess there is a danger with that of like doing work just to get some likes instead of doing it because you really want to do it. Right.
But that's not your motivation. That's never the motivation. It's always
I feel like
you're working for yourself to improve yourself and that kind of thing. But to keep your motivation up, it's not a bad idea.
But then some people must do it because they're like, well, if I post the stuff that I really like, no one gives a crap. Whereas if I post this fan art or this thing that I don't really care about but is part of like the new zeitgeist thing, then I do better. So what would you say to people who do that, where they're just doing it because they're going to get extra notoriety?
I think the motivation there is different. I think for people like that, it's about more expanding your network and expanding your brand.
Yeah.
Because it's true. If you piggyback off of existing IPs and stuff like that, a lot more people are going to like that than your own original creations. It's something that happens over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And even something as simple as like a doodle of fan art or something like that will tend to do a lot better than a completely finished 80-hour piece of your own original creation.
That's true.
So I can understand why people do it. It's not something I personally do too much. But
I think as long as it's something you're still passionate about, it's still true to you. I guess it's only weird when it starts to be like, well, I don't care about doing this thing. I'm only doing it because I know that it's going to be big on X platform. It's like, well, sure, like if you loved the Spider-Man thing and you wanted to do an animation for it, there's nothing wrong with doing that. But if you're literally just doing it because you know that that's what everyone's going on about right now and you can get a bunch more followers, then the people that follow you are probably not going to be the right kind of people anyway, because they'll be like, oh my god, this cool animation Spider-Man thing, and that might not be what you're about anyway. What if you're into like sci-fi and now you've just got a bunch of followers that love Marvel Universe stuff, and it's like, well, who have you really
And
helped?
that is a very valid point.
Like, you know, it's like, I remember talking to Sedona about this at one point, and I hope she doesn't mind me saying this, but she was saying how she had like a normal amount of followers, and then she started doing a bunch of like Critical Role fan art stuff, and then she got a ton more followers, and she's like, oh, well, if you actually look at it, like the amount of like relevant followers I have is a lot less, because like the kind of core game dev people joined at the start, and then like more of the, you know, but there's nothing wrong with that because she loves Critical Role and she does cool fan art for it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But then those kind of people are probably not going to get her a job. Does that make sense?
Exactly. It kind of defeats the whole purpose of having like your Twitter network and things like that. But for people who a couple posts later advertise that they're going to be taking commissions, drawing all these fans in is beneficial to them.
Yeah.
Because, you know, a lot of the laymen, the people that can't actually draw or things like that, they're going to come to people like the artists, the people who do the fan art and stuff like that, to be like, hey, I got this idea for a picture. I can't do it myself. Can I pay you $50 to do it? That kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But for us specifically, no, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's better for us to, it's cool to do the Spider-Man stuff. And it's cool to do the play the game stuff. But I mean, you're trying to keep it oriented around other animators.
Yeah. Yeah. But like, if that's part of your passion, then, you know, it's just more of who you are. So that's fine. I guess it's just the falsehood of trying to do it just for getting some internet tick box thing.
Right.
But you did say before, like, when you get it prized off your cold dead hands, that personal project, right? So, how do you feel about going back and cleaning up old work? Henry, because you haven't spoken in a while.
How do I feel about it? I don't do it. So just because I don't know, I don't like going back and touching on work because I've already put so much into it, and then when I call it finish, it's finished. So if I feel like there's something that I can fix with that, like sometimes I find it often better to go in and redo an animation that's similar in that style. So say like if I did like a heavy attack and I'm like, oh, there's a few things I want to fix, or a few things I learned from doing that attack that I kind of want to try out. Like I'll just do a new animation, and usually that works out better. I don't have keys everywhere already to mess around with. I don't have to go in and look at and figure out what's going on with the curves and stuff. So I'll just animate it, and usually second or third iterations, or not iterations, but like animations that are kind of the same. Like if I'm doing the heavy attack, I want to do another heavy attack like that. The second one will probably go a lot faster and it'll be better too. So yeah. So I don't like going back and touching old finished work. Yeah, but that's just me personally.
Yeah. I feel like I have so many projects that are like 99.9% done, and they're fine. Like I could put them up today and it would be fine. But I'm not quite there, but I feel like you know, you get to the point where you've been working on something for, like, let's say you've been working on for 6 months, and you're like, I really like how this turned out, and it's really close, but it's not. It doesn't sit right with me yet. Like I feel like there's that little bit that I could get if I just went away from it and came back to it, which is what I did with one of my projects, and then I came back to it and I polished it up, and I still wasn't quite happy with it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to leave it for a bit longer. I'll come back to it in a couple months. And still...
You know, if you listen to yourself, you got to realize that that's self-defeating. I mean, you already said it's 99.9% of the way done.
It is. It's fine.
Getting that last 0.1% is going to take 10 to 12 hours, and it's not going to be worth it.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. I should just call it done. It's like you're exactly right. Like I could start a new project and it would be way better. Like you get so much better at building the foundation every single time, and there's a point of where you're just getting diminishing returns, and I know that. I should just get it done. But for now, I've distracted myself with other projects. So
yeah, all our projects, pretty much anything in general. You'll spend 40 hours doing the first 95% of it, and another 40 hours doing the last 5%. And really, the payoff is not the same. And it's like what my teachers used to tell me all the time. There's no point in polishing a turd because it's not going to stink any less. So like, if you go back and try to fix something old, like I'd much rather do what Henry says and just stop and do something different.
Yeah.
Or if you worked on something like 3 years ago and you look at it again and you want to try to recreate it just to see how you progress, I don't see a problem with that. But leave the past in the past. I don't think there's any benefit to going back and polishing old work. I think just the time commitment versus the reward you get from it is not worth it.
So that's something else that reminds me of an interesting point. So I used to be of the opinion that, like, it's only animation quality that counts, and there's no point me doing nice rendering or nice lighting or whatever because it's only animation quality that counts. So I used to put a lot of like Playblast stuff out, and then I went and watched a talk where it was this really great, it was is it Unidev? Yeah, Unidev on Twitter. She's really great. I went to the talk and I saw hers, and it was about character art, and she had these like beautiful like still images, and had done like when she does like a character, she does it to like the nth degree. She does like a really cool pose for it and really great lighting, and she was like, and like cool little effects and really great like extra, and she was like, if you're gonna spend that much time on something, why wouldn't you make it look as good as possible? Like, the reason my work stands out more than other people's is because I put that little extra bit into it. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, because I always was kind of like, well, if they're really going to like it, they're going to like it for the animation, so I don't care. And then after that, I started trying to get like actual decent like lighting and stuff. So, and I'm still kind of torn. I'm like, well, yeah, they shouldn't care, but it still makes it look better. So what do you guys think about doing the kind of non-animation work, the rendering and the lighting and the whatever else? What do you think, David?
My big thing is, what is your goal? I mean, it's so if you're animating
like a
something,
showreel piece or as like a portfolio piece, let's say.
even then, like because if you're handing a portfolio to somebody else that's also an animator, they don't care about the lighting, they don't care about the environments or anything like that. Maybe subconsciously they're going to be affected by it, but they're looking at the animation. If you're putting something up on YouTube for the general public, yeah, lighting, environments, and all that fun stuff will definitely increase your viewer count and things like that. It'll be a lot easier to spread around. But if you're animating to get better at animating, or if you're doing a portfolio piece, or if you're doing pretty much anything just to get better, then I don't necessarily think it's worth it.
Yeah.
That being said, it is really cool when it is done like it.
Yeah.
But I think you're much better off passing it off to somebody else who does know how to do that stuff, because that's the other half of it too. If you don't know how to do this kind of thing, bad lighting can make your animation, bad environments can be distracting and make your animation worse. So if you're going to do this kind of stuff, make sure you're competent enough to do it. And if not, have somebody else do it.
Yeah.
Somebody that can do it way faster and way better.
Yeah. Do you agree, Henry?
Yeah, I totally agree. It's if you're animating people and you're just handing out your portfolio or reveal, people are gonna look at it looking at for the animation. But yeah, having said that, I do think it is like if you can make it look visually pleasing, like it does help a bit, but I wouldn't spend a ton of time on that and take that time away from animating. Like animating is like 99% of it, right? Like so yeah, like David said, if you don't spend a lot of time doing the other part, especially if you don't know how and need to learn all that, just have someone else do it, and yeah, focus on animation.
Animation, cool. So I'm gonna try a new thing where I try and do a mini recap.
Ooh.
Okay.
Okay.
So if you guys have anything to chip in, let me know. Otherwise, I'm gonna try and recap what we talked about. So if you're finding it hard to motivate yourself, then a really good way to get that going is to just stay at work or stay at your workplace or wherever you're working, is to just keep going, because then you can just make it part of your workday instead of trying to then get home where your motivation goes like that and it's gone. So like keep at work. Try and schedule time in for it, because otherwise you just won't make the time. So if you like just mentally schedule time in, you keep yourself to some kind of outward accountable schedule, like streaming or just signing up to some sort of competition, then that's great. Twitter's great for getting inspiration from other artists. Don't give your brain time to stop motivation, which is just the whole getting home and stuff thing. Split up work into easier and harder tasks, so maybe like working those different muscles, see if there's certain tasks you can do on certain days that you know that you'll have more inspiration or more this, that and the other, and working out your different mental muscles, for lack of a better word. Some cool things to do if you're feeling tired and you don't want to do stuff but you still want to get something done is to just play Blast and take notes, because you can get a lot out of that without actually having to put a ton of effort in. And I've put schedule workshop side projects. Oh, scheduling workshop / side projects, that's my own note. Keep it novel, keep it fun, keep it something you're passionate about, because it's your own personal work at the end of the day. And if you're just doing it because, I mean, I think there's some merit, to be fair, for doing stuff that's pushing yourself. Like, you can still do something fun, but it is something you haven't explored yet or something you want to get better at. So I feel like there's like a combination of the two. I don't know if you guys do that. I do that. When I make a new project, I know I'm going to be working on it for a while, so I try and find something that's really motivates me, but is also something that I can improve at. So I kind of get the best of both worlds. Yeah?
Yeah, I do that all the time, especially if I try to pick out a weak point in myself.
Right.
And then I make my next assignment focus on that
Right.
weak point. So I force myself to get better at it.
Right. So it might be uncomfortable because you're not so good at it, but it's still comfortable because it's still something that you really want to do. So it's like you kind of balance it out. Yeah, get some accountability internally or externally with a group of friends or Discord group. The animates animates.com. Have an end goal or a deadline if you're good at keeping to your own deadlines. And if you're not, then find some deadlines that you can't change, like a competition or make a bet with a friend or something like that. And don't be afraid of posting up your failures because everyone has them and they're nothing to be ashamed about, but don't put them on your main portfolio. Do it on something like a blog or Twitter or something where it's a fun, friendly community and it's not going to be looked at by a bunch of recruiters. And focus on what you learned from it. And last but not least, don't go back and polish turds. They're not going to stink any less. I can't believe I just said that. That hurts me, that one. That hurts me. And don't worry about the lighting and stuff unless you really feel passionate about it. If you want to focus on the animation, focus on the animation and just make everything else look good enough, I guess, to not be distracting. Does that sound good?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
great.
sounds great.
Okay, I think we're good for questions. But if you've got any others, we'll be floating around in the Discord, so you can always post them up there. We also have a critiques channel thing where you can post up any of your work you've got and people will try and give you some feedback. And if not, we'll see you next week. Bye guys.
So much.
All right, cheers.
See ya.